My name is Arath Martinez, and I did my presentation on the relationship between training and elevation. The reason I did this is because there's a training method called living high, is where athletes live high and train low, and it's used by high-level athletes. These high-level athletes live at high altitude, which is classified at 8 to 10,000 feet above sea level, and they train at lower or normal altitude, which is around 2,500 feet above sea level, which is the normal altitude in the United States, or the average altitude in the United States. Go ahead. So why did I do live high, train low? It's because, or why do athletes live high and train low? They do this because being in elevation requires their body to work harder for normal functions, like breathing. So if you've ever been in somewhere that is at a higher elevation than what you're used to, your ventilation will increase, so you will breathe harder and faster because your body is trying to get more oxygen, but there's less oxygen in the air. Your hydration goes down, so you become dehydrated because there's less humidity in the air. And this happens from the difference in air density where you are not used to being. So atmospheric pressure plays a role in training high and living high and training low, excuse me. The atmospheric pressure at sea level is 760 millimeters of mercury, and the makeup of that is oxygen is 21% at 160 millimeters of mercury, nitrogen is at 593 millimeters of mercury at 78%, and the other 1% does not affect the whole makeup. Atmospheric pressure decreases at higher altitudes, so as you get higher, there's less of everything in the air. Some physiological factors that come into play with this training method is that they induce hypoxic effects. So hypoxia is when the body experiences low oxygen levels in the body tissues. Some symptoms are confusion, dizziness, and difficulty breathing. And hypoxia could be fatal with chronic conditions. And what hypoxia does is that it sends signals to the kidney to release erythropoietin when oxygen levels in the body are low. And what erythropoietin does is that it produces red blood cells. And these red blood cells carry hemoglobin, which contain iron, and they carry oxygen. And the process that athletes want to go through is called acclimatization, which is repeated exposure to this higher altitude, which causes your body to acclimate. And it could take a period of days, of a couple days to a couple of weeks for your body to acclimate. So here's an image of some endurance athletes running. As you can see, there's mountains in the background, so they could live higher than where they are running, and they train low. So athletes that live in higher altitude use their physiological adaptations for their benefit at lower or normal altitude than what they're used to. More oxygen to tissues allows for better performances for these endurance athletes. Some examples of higher altitude competition in higher altitude is the Colorado School of Mines, which is in Golden, Colorado. As you can see, their football stadium is in the middle of Colorado. Golden, Colorado is 5,800 feet above sea level, which is roughly a mile, which is more than a mile actually. And the reason I did them is because throughout the playoffs, at the NCAA Division II playoffs, they played schools like Minnesota State Mankato, which the average elevation is 800 feet, Angelo State University, which is in Texas, with an average of 1,800 feet, and Shepherd University, which is in Pennsylvania, which has an average of 500 feet of elevation. A question that I had was, what did these athletes have that allowed them to perform better than their competition? The Colorado Springs Training Center is another example of training in elevation. The Olympic Training Center is 6,000 feet above sea level, and the average Colorado elevation is 6,800 feet above sea level. So athletes are more likely to live higher than this training center, and they go down to this training center to reap the benefits that their body has acclimatized to. Thank you for listening to my presentation.